Lesson 19. Supreme Power. Plane of Harmony. Soul. Mankind have speculated about their immortal souls ever since a dawning human consciousness first blotted out their direct knowledge of that perfect part of their being. Religions have fostered a blind belief in its existence, great teachers have lit the fires of impassioned faiths to serve its ends, the voices of 1,000 peoples in 1,000 times have clamored down the ages their defiant assertion of its supremacy. Yet, far and clear above this emotional tumult born of a steadfast conviction in the hearts of men, echoes still the challenge of a mind that cannot help but doubt, is there a soul, and what is a soul? Humanity, in this material age, is not satisfied merely to believe, it wants to know, to have irrefutable proofs that certain things are as they appear to be and not otherwise. Material science has made astonishing discoveries on the physical plane. Mental science is unearthing priceless information on the plane of mind. But metaphysicians, vainly essaying the loftiest plane of our being, have produced only clouds of elaborate theory conjured out of an unverified supposition that there is a soul, iridescent bubbles of floating logic which burst and vanish at the query of an analytical mind demanding, "Prove to me that the soul exists, show me that unbroken transition from visible effect to invisible cause, so I can know definitely." As metaphysics deals only with what is beyond physical perception, it cannot exhibit actual proofs of that which it teaches. However well its reasoning may hang together in the abstract, there is no concrete fact to anchor its argument within reach of the practical rational mind. It becomes therefore the task of the scientist, the physicist, to overbridge the hiatus between the two, correlating unseen causes with visible effects and extracting a satisfactory solution of the problem of the soul's existence. Starting therefore with the physical body, let us examine and classify what is apparent there in order to obtain a clear understanding of the nature of the unseen cause behind it. Analyzing yourself as a human being, you discover 4 fundamental qualities out of which your whole complex life structure is erected, each retaining an identity peculiar to it alone yet all fused into a single unified expression, like the component elements in a clear drop of seawater. First of these 4 qualities is life. Without that the rest are dark and void. When you live, you are; when life goes, you are not. It is the flame on the human wick which draws all other qualities into luminous expression. Your body, living, proves your existence. Second comes mind. Life manifests itself through you in a conscious way. You are aware that you live, and you know that you are aware of it. You have the power to think. Third in the sequence is law. You see it working through your physical body, the automatic functioning of which is based on law. Your conscious life also is not haphazard. You are able to think and act consecutively for your own greatest advantage. You perceive the natural laws within whose bounds you exist, and you realize that you must conform to those laws in order to progress. Transgression of them, conscious or unconscious, must inevitably result in a corresponding measure of trouble, disease, and disharmony of every kind, so your constant endeavor is to attune yourself to them to the best of your ability. Finally, the quality that holds all together in that coherent unit which is the individual is the power of attraction, or love. You do not disintegrate physically because the magnetic pull exercised by this force glues cell to cell and flesh to bone. You seek to gratify desires because you are attracted emotionally to the thing you want by love. Attraction is the more comprehensive scientific term for a power that is often regarded in only one application when spoken of as love. These 4, life, mind, law, and love, indissolubly knit into one unit, conscious of itself and emerging into perceptible manifestation in the physical body, constitute the unseen cause which is called the soul. Though the soul is perfect, its projection into expression is through the impure lens of the present state of human consciousness. Therefore that expression is never perfect, life among mortals is not eternal, mind omniscient, law harmoniously observed, or love serenely flawless. Yet these imperfect expressions in the physical body bring within your human perception the proof of the eternal cause from which you emanated and to which you are eternally connected by your soul. The amount of sorrow and discord that enters the experience of everyone corresponds to the degree of their lapse from a standard set by these qualities and perfection. Your soul, the real you, is thus the basis of your existence and identity. Its physical embodiment on this material plane is perishable and imperfect, but not the soul itself. That uncorrupted ray proceeding direct from the sources of all life, all knowledge, all power, eternally sustained by it and connected with it, possesses all those powers and qualities also as inherent in its nature. Universal life energy is eternal, the soul born of it is eternal. Universal life energy is infinite mind. The soul possesses all mental qualities. Universal life energy is basically harmonious and perfect, entirely devoid of the disharmony which we know as evil. The soul is equally harmonious, perfect, and clean of wrong. However faulty may be its human expressions, the soul is and remains untainted, an individualized, self-conscious, harmonious and eternal projection of universal life energy into its own universal substance. The real you, sharing all the qualities and powers of its original cause, individual, perfect and eternal, is indeed the image and likeness of that cause. Yet a human being is not the only thing that possesses an identity of its own. Throughout all nature, animate and inanimate, the numberless elements comprising it are individual and distinct, segregated from each other by characteristics which may vary in degree but never in kind. A horse is always a horse, whether big, little, or indifferent. A cow is always a cow, each evolves along its own particular line and neither ever lapses into the other. Similarly with plants and minerals, gold does not degenerate into lead, nor pines into gooseberry bushes. Therefore the question may logically be asked, what imparts to these lesser members of creation their special identity? Do they also have souls which are manifesting through them? The answer is, yes, everything in nature has its soul. Beginning with the most simple elemental yet perfect souls and going up link by link through the mineral, the vegetable, and the animal kingdoms, with each link becoming more complex as it offers a wider avenue for expression. All the members of that vast composite nature manifest souls, but everyone only within its own specific limits. All modifications and all improvements, such as are apparent in evolution, occur within those limits. Thus the arrangement of things in nature is comparable to the numerical scale in mathematics. In that scale each number retains its own peculiar identity and place in the mathematical scheme, no matter in what way it may be indicated. 5 can be written in any number of styles that ingenuity may suggest, large, small, plain, fancy, 5, V, etc., but it remains always and immutably 5. It can never of itself become 6, nor can it lapse into 4, it includes 4, and 1 unit in addition, just as it in turn is included in 6, yet lacks 1 unit that 6 has. But it is distinctly and unmistakably 5. If this were not so, if each number did not preserve eternally its own identity and refused to lose that identity in some other number, the whole elaborate structure of mathematics would instantly collapse. Similarly in nature, if the physical expressions of souls were not self-contained, changing and developing only with their own respective walls and refusing to merge into one another, the whole superbly ordered natural structure would collapse also. The culminant point in this hierarchy of nature is the soul of man, the most complex and comprehensive of all. It includes and expresses all the qualities of other lesser souls in nature, and something more besides. Like the highest number in the numerical table, it embraces all the less advanced numbers which dwindle into a central core of unity and to them adds the final margin of its own distinguishing shell. That is why man is to have dominion over the rest of creation. He contains all the characteristics of others and is therefore greater. The evidence of this exists both in the material composition of the human body and in the human character, and in many instances is strikingly apparent. All material elements, all gases, all minerals, such as gold, lead, silver, etc., are present in the chemical makeup of the individual. Various characters exhibit as dominant traits the qualities that observation has taught people to associate with certain animals. In describing other people, they are often shrewdly identified as foxes, lions, weasels, rabbits, skunks, and less savory representatives of our natural life. Even vegetables are not ignored as an aid in cataloging fellow humans. All are latent in everyone. Finally, what is the added unit which elevates mankind to his position of dominance? It is the fact that man is conscious of his own soul, while his lesser brethren are not conscious of theirs. The soul of man is not fundamentally more perfect than the soul of anything else. All have their common origin in the great causeless cause, which projects them into expression through the one common medium of universal life energy. But the sphere of expression is more ample in subordinate forms. Other things can look consciously up to man, man looks consciously up to his original cause. There is thus a fraternal bond uniting all nature. Every human being has something in common with everything else. The souls of all emerge from a single source and are embodied in a single universal substance, which science calls electrons. Only the arrangement is different. That is why, as the children of one father-mother, peace, cooperation, and mutual help should be exercised throughout the teeming members of that great universal family instead of fighting and destruction. And on none does the responsibility rest more directly than on man, because he, with his gift of consciousness, knows. The argument may suggest itself that all things do not manifest soul qualities. An inert lump of mineral substance exhibits no perceptible evidence of life, mind, law, or love. Yet if you believe that, you are very much mistaken. All substance, mineral, vegetable, or animal, express these four qualities unconsciously in the very stuff of their composition. All are made up out of the same universal substance called electrons. Different combinations of electrons produce the atoms of the various forms of matter. Human perception cannot discern electrons or even atoms. It can see agglomeration of them as a whole, and that agglomeration appears motionless, inert. But within the atom, in the electronic units which comprise it, is an ordered intensity of action that the human mind is too coarse to enmesh in its concepts. But this action, while it expresses all the qualities of the soul, is not aware of itself. Life is in the incredibly swift motion of the electrons, intelligence and law in the exact plan they follow, and love in the magnetic attraction that keeps the spinning constellation within its atomic walls. Yet there lacks the one factor that distinguishes every other agglomeration of electrons and atoms from that which is known as man, conscious expression. The primary purpose of human existence is to transmit into as nearly perfect and abundant expression as possible on the material plane the perfection of qualities in the soul. All knowledge, all success, all joy, all power wait there to be uncovered and put into practical application in your daily life. In proportion as you render yourself a clearer lens for their richer and more unsullied transmission into positive activities, you fulfill the law of progress. In proportion as you fail to groom yourself toward that flawless ideal, you transgress this law and incur corresponding consequences. Your opportunity to derive the fullest advantage from the law of progress lies in the intelligent development of the channels connecting you with superconsciousness. That is the door through which your soul pours in its treasures with a lavish hand when the door is open. Only as you mold yourself, through the conscious and constant use of universal life energy, in every department of your life, to the dominant foursquare of life, mind, law, and love, can you achieve the poise, harmony, and power within that will attune you to the perfect source of all power. But when that sympathetic accord has been established, the door of your superconsciousness will be open wide, and through it you will welcome consciously those perfect qualities and powers which your soul has already possessed and held in readiness from eternity. Human mental force cannot accomplish this. Willpower strikes a far harsher note than the harmonious one with which you are trying to get into communion. To use it is to contract yourself physically and mentally, closing the very door you desire to open. Universal life energy sounds the only note that corresponds with universal life energy represented in your own soul, and it cannot be bullied or driven. You have no choice but to accommodate yourself to its laws if you want it to work through you. Understanding these laws, realizing the fundamental principles which they outline, you can build those principles into your life according to the methods described in these lessons. Do so, and you will find your patience and perseverance rewarded by gradual growth into a power that will exceed your most sanguine expectations. Last and most comprehensive of the material questions implied by a study of the immortal soul is the question of death. If the real you, the core about which the physical individual is constructed, is eternal and imperishable, why is it that every mortal being must inevitably die? Why must trees decay and metals corrode and rocks at length crumble into dust, like the rest of us? Modern science, investigating this matter on the physical plane, has discovered that, from a scientific point of view, there is no such thing as actual death. There is a change, but never complete annihilation. You change radically when you die. So far as the physical aspect of the case is concerned, your body undergoes rapid dissolution, disintegrates and sheds its material identity as a body. But although the constituent parts of that structure of flesh and bone abandon their relation one to another, relinquish the close association which they preserved while you were inside, they still exist as particles of dust, gases, minerals, etc. Every particle is itself a cluster of atoms, and every atom is a spinning cosmos of indestructible electrons, still whirling headlong in their appointed orbits, still manifesting the qualities of the universal power from which they were born, still unreeling their tiny destiny, quite indifferent to what goes on outside. In other words, life did not die, it simply dispersed when the soul which attracted it into that association withdrew. The process was like switching away the current in an electric magnet. Once the attractive power receded, the clinging bits of matter let go and fell apart. Yet the current itself, the individualized ray of all power, the soul, which collected about itself that material crust, not only exists itself, but exists as a conscious entity which has already attracted a suitable medium for its expression on the loftier plane where it now resides. It merely discarded the material body which was no longer adequate to transmit the qualities it was ready to unfold and built another one which was. Human life is but one step on a long upward road of growth, evolution, and unfoldment. The very same process that the soul experiences on a large scale is apparent on a smaller scale within the limits of the material plane. Your physical body is continually dying and being renewed around you. Skin, hair, cells, bones, everything inside and out is eroding and crumbling away only to be replaced by new structures. Every few years, in fact, sees you entirely remade from cover to cover without you being in the least aware of it, except, perhaps, as the melancholy evidences of advancing age betray an unnecessary slowing down of the process. Looking lower in the scale of life, the change becomes more sharply defined the further you go. Animals molt seasonally, birds shed their plumage for new at the mating period, snakes and various other reptiles abandon their last year's skins almost in one piece. But it is among the insect life that the transition is most completely and vividly illustrated. Consider, for instance, the life history of a caterpillar. Between that crawling, earthbound worm and the exquisitely colored, elusive butterfly whose domain is the air there seems to be no common bond of relationship. Yet through some amazing necromancy the dull worm appears to reconstruct itself and blossom forth into that winged marvel of a butterfly. What is the connection there? The caterpillar, like everything else, is the imperfect material shell of a perfect soul. That soul has in it all the distinctive qualities of both the worm and the butterfly, but it unfolds them in logical sequence from the bottom up. When the lower, fundamental qualities have received the necessary development in an appropriate environment, they are ready to give birth into expression the finer qualities which outline themselves in the form of the butterfly. Therefore the caterpillar is simply observing the law of eternal progress when it creeps along its career into the caterpillar destiny of a chrysalis. Once entombed in its chrysalis, the caterpillar has experienced what we, in our evolution, call death. That is, it has died as a caterpillar, yet the soul still remains in the dead body through which it has ceased to express its former activities and quietly prepares itself for the expression of finer qualities which the old material shell was not adapted to transmit. The living chrysalis in which the soul dwells during that period of rest gradually molds itself to the form of the soaring nature now demanding expression, until the day when the same soul bursts forth in its entirely new aspect of a butterfly. There within the limits of a physical plane is repeated what the human individual goes through when he steps over the border of that plane, out of range of our perception. From the discarded shell of the old body rises a new being, one which embraces all that the other has been but differs completely by virtue of what is now added. The soul, finished with expression through its human number of 5, devotes itself to ampler expression through the next higher number of 6. Because the caterpillar and the butterfly demonstrate so well this transition, the butterfly has been taken from early times as the emblem of the soul liberated from its material prison. It sums up most concisely a lesson written large throughout the whole great book of nature for those observant ones who care to read, that there is no death. There is only continual change, evolution from one condition into another and usually a better one, according to the natural law of evolution or unfoldment from the lower into the higher. Nature does not countenance any divergence from this upward trend of all things. The reverse process, involution, is a direct abuse of that natural law, resulting in degeneration in every direction. Involution, if it could be carried to an ultimate extreme, would culminate in the utter annihilation of real death. The soul would swallow itself, so to say, as the barriers to expression turned it constantly in on itself. Yet in order to do this, the process would have to run out the small end of infinity, which of course has no end, so even their death is impossible. Progress is the law of eternal existence. Life based on laws of nature and lived according to those laws cannot go backward. Death is a step forward, a transition into a wider sphere of activity. The only terror connected with it is the dread spawned from ignorance of its real character. The greater part of agony and suffering attendant upon leaving this material plane is bred of that fear and is a total waste, as the sufferer will discover to his astonishment once he has died out of his physical self and into his new and finer condition. The new shell which the soul assumes on the next higher plane is just as much a body to it as the old one at discord, only constructed out of the medium peculiar to that plane. Human beings cannot perceive that plane. The rate of vibration there is too high for our coarser faculties to register consciously, therefore the bodies which souls acquire there are invisible to us under ordinary circumstances. Yet the mortal being, encased in his physical senses, while he cannot break through the lid of his limitations to perceive what is above him, is perceived readily from that plane. The particular advantage this confers upon those who have stepped out of our human sphere is that it teaches them definitely the non-existence of death. Mankind, and their activities, are always accustomed to proceed from the point of view of matter as a perishable thing, including themselves. They traverse the material plane at a single stride, yet do not perceive where their next stride is going to take them. That is because their lower rate of vibration does not render them sensible of the higher rate of that invisible world into which they are forging ahead. They cannot see beyond the horizon which their creeping process unrolls only gradually from the unexplored future into which they advance. But all behind them, all that they have once passed on their course, is known territory, and from the loftier area they attain on the other side of mortal bounds, they are able to survey the whole human field they have left. They are able to see human beings still living in physical bodies, because the higher rate of vibrations they have achieved includes and surpasses the lower rate which prevails in the visible world, yet those in the visible world, limited by that lower rate, cannot perceive them. The higher the rate of vibration, the more abundantly the soul is able to express its qualities through them, and the more powerful the individual becomes in every direction. The world beyond this physical world is thus one of far broader scope, of richer knowledge, finer qualities, greater power, and quicker realization. It is a world stripped of the clumsy limitations which hamper one here. Death is still the great enemy of mankind, as it has always been, because of the fear of it which erects it into an ominous reality in human minds. But someday knowledge will strip from it that funereal mask. People will see it as the fresh, vital experience it actually is, the kindly adventure thrilling with the surprises that will greet them on their awakening. They will approach it with something of the spirit that animates aviators rocketing through space at a speed never before attained, or putting their winged mounts through breathtaking stunts in the middle of vacancy. Confidence, absolute and serene, sparkles through their daring. They know that a strong apparatus under them, guided by a clear mind, a steady heart, and a firm hand will mock the dangers that lurk in their antic course. When knowledge of so-called death is simply a milestone marking the way into a continuation of the life here, but on a higher and incomparably richer plane, becomes a part of the mental fabric of mankind, the fear of death which now gives it so bitter a flavor will be wholly banished. The sting will be removed, the old prophecy fulfilled. Death will be swallowed up in victory, the shadow dispelled from human consciousness by the brilliant light of knowledge. Mankind prepares now for that not far distant day when the whole condition of life on this earth will entirely change. People will not need to die in their physical bodies, like a caterpillar, in order to reach a higher state of consciousness. They will merge into that new state as naturally as ice melts into water, merely raising the rate of vibrations which now manifest themselves in a corresponding physical body until that body fades out of the perception of their fellow beings and assumes the finer aspect of their next and higher expression. All the needless sorrow, pain, suffering, and regret now associated with the departure of loved ones from this plane will then be eliminated. Translation into another plane of existence will be achieved without a pang and without loss even for a moment of one's consciousness and memories of the past. And just as the harsh edges will be rubbed from the far limits of the human career, so also will the distress that stands ward at the portals through which we enter into this life be avoided. The present method of being born to the earth will then also be outgrown. The confining walls which imprison mortals on this planet will be raised before and behind, so that access is no less easy and free from difficulties than departure. Exercises. Practice as usual, morning and evening, the star exercise, relaxation, silence, and the continual contact with universal life energy. Then apply the coordinated stream of your forces in the channel of the new exercise for this week, meditation. Meditation implies a deep and placid consideration of the world within, a seclusion from storms and squalls that blow down out of your environment to ruffle the delicate calm of your reflective mood. Therefore choose a time and place suitable to your purpose, and comfortably withdrawn from all likelihood of unexpected intrusion. Then proceed with meditation as follows. Select for the object of the exercise a sufficiently lofty and appropriate subject, in this particular instance your own soul. Then, after you have entered into silence and made the contact with universal life energy, concentrate your mind strongly on that highest and deepest part of your being. Perceive it in its untarnished aspect as a pure ray from its eternal source, imbued with all positive qualities of strength and power. Understand it as the inexhaustible spring of its manifestations in you as life, mind, law, and love. Let your concept of it overflow distinguishing material barriers and search out its brotherhood with other souls throughout all nature, both in the basic universal substance of electrons into which all are projected and in the common source from which all emerge. See yourself as its embodiment on this material plane, expressing but not obscuring its qualities. Your process of thinking during meditation should be slow, unhurried but deep. Let your thoughts sink into yourself like tiny motes sinking into the clear, bottomless depths of a quiet mountain lake. Drown your conscious self in the crystal light of your inner self, allowing it to dissolve from you the irritating crust of disharmonious memories and experiences. The further you are able to penetrate in this way, the more satisfactory and refreshing your meditation will be. Guard against the improper use of willpower in this exercise. The subtle temptation to probe with that human instrument is always on the alert to spoil anything that requires patience, mental and physical repose, and relaxation. You cannot rush to your destination by your own willful strength. You can penetrate only gradually and steadily into that remote inner chamber of your being. Extraneous thoughts from without will probably insist on flashing through your mind in the beginning when you practice meditation. Be equally firm and insistent in dismissing them and bringing your mind back to the subject designed for it. Cultivate the necessary calm, unflurried attitude of utter restfulness, and as you improve that you will obtain better results. Through meditation you will wipe away the discordant films which obscure expression of the soul's higher qualities through your human channels and will promote an extraordinary development and accord in every direction. It is one of the most valuable methods for obtaining the poise and consequent powers so indispensable for success in life. Questions and answers to Lesson 19. 1. From what point of view has the soul generally been regarded? The point of view from which the soul has generally been regarded is, from the point of view of blind faith, unsubstantiated by definite proofs. 2. Why has this explanation failed? This explanation has failed because the practical rational mind demands proofs, the unbroken transition from visible effects to invisible cause, before it can accept conclusions. 3. What perceptible proofs of the soul's existence and qualities exist in the human individual? The perceptible proofs of the soul's existence that are apparent in the human individual are the four fundamental qualities of life, mind, law, and love out of which his whole life structure is erected. 4. Define the human soul. The human soul is the individualized, self-conscious, harmonious, compound, and eternal projection of the great causeless cause through universal life energy into its own eternal substance. 5. Is the possession of a soul restricted to human beings? The possession of a soul is not restricted to human beings, since every material manifestation is but the expression of the soul behind it. 6. What position does the soul of man occupy in relation to the rest of nature? The position occupied by the soul of man in relation to the rest of nature is the position of dominance, including in itself the qualities manifested in all other souls and something more besides. 7. What differentiates the human soul from all others? The human soul is differentiated from all others by the fact that it is conscious of its own existence. 8. In what respects does universal brotherhood become apparent? Universal brotherhood becomes apparent in the universal substance, called electrons, through which all souls are projected into material expression, and in the common source, universal life energy, from which all are immediately derived. 9. What purpose does the soul represent in material existence? The purpose which the soul represents in material existence is the perfection of qualities for which mankind strive in order to make themselves an equally perfect medium of expression. 10. What is death? Death is a continuation of the one and only present life into a higher and greater sphere of activity which is beyond the ordinary range of human perception. 11. What is the natural law governing all life? The natural law governing all life is the law of progress or evolution, which decrees the logical unfoldment of soul qualities from the lower into the higher. 12. How will death eventually be eliminated? Death will eventually be eliminated by expanding the narrow bounds of human consciousness sufficiently to include and demonstrate, by conscious raising of one's vibrations, the continuity of life.